So, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, good evening, wherever you are. Hope you are safe and happy. Welcome to this SGVirtual, our first SGVirtual in March. And just a few housekeeping notes. We would like to thank our partners for enabling it. And if you like to participate, just in the chat, just shout your questions or comments, and also tell us what you're looking for and how eventually Grindr may assist you. But now, without further ado, let's go directly to our eminent fireside chatter, Alex ZIVODER. Hello, Alex.
Hey, Steve. Good morning for us.
Hello. I'm glad that we meet again because we met a few years ago in other lives. So
Indeed.
For those who don't know a little bit, what is Gohenry? If you could tell us a little bit in a nutshell, what you would say is Gohenry.
It's a debit card for children. That's the shortest I can put it.
That's
right?
perfect.
So it's in the UK it's a Visa debit card. In the US it's a MasterCard, and the card comes with an app, a parental app, where basically which allows parents to effectively control the card or set the parameters of the card, so like the child doesn't go completely wild. But in essence, it's a financial education tool. It's a way for parents to have conversations around money, typically on weekends, which is like a pay time, usually for kids. It's a way for children to have a life, because today, as you know, everything is becoming more and more digital, and giving them cash is quite pointless. Because you can buy nothing on Amazon or Fortnite or whatever game they typically buy. So they need a digital mean. And we are this bridge between, let's say, the physical world, the card, and the digital world. We are also this bridge in the family, allowing conversations around money.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Alex. Now, coming a little bit back to Gohenry, I mean, this is what it is now, but how the idea of Gohenry came about? I mean, what was the incentive for the founders or the mastermind, let's call it, behind Gohenry? How did it come to life?
It came to life in the early 2010s, probably 2011, 2012, when three friends, three friends who were actually. It happened on a Saturday on a football pitch. They were watching their kids playing football, and they were talking about life, of course, and came the subject of spent by their children. And you have to remember, back in 2010, 2011, kids were buying stuff like on iPods, this little thing that Apple invented in the times, which was revolutionary, so a lot of music, etc. And they realized that all of them had the same problem. They were giving their credit cards details to their kids, and each of them said that doesn't work. It's not a good idea. So let's do. They couldn't find anything on the market. They couldn't find any bank developing something what they wanted. So they went out and they started doing market research. Realized that there is really indeed nothing, and so they set out to create what would become Gohenry. It started as a different name, as Pocket Money with all the vowels. And they created it, launched it, and in November 2012, the first customer made the first transaction. And actually, we found out 5 years later, when we celebrated the 5th anniversary of this transaction, that when we were already called Gohenry, that we found out completely by chance that the name of the child who made the first transaction was Henry, right? So our name was like, even though we picked this name a bit by chance, our name was actually written in the database. It was the name of the child who made the first transaction. So, okay, let me accelerate a bit the story. After this foundation, there is the usual fundraising. So first family, then friends of friends, then like larger and larger nets. and they get basically in the net someone who is a serial entrepreneur who backs gives in a substantial amount of money to the company, to the founders. After a few months of working with them, basically realizes that the founding team is not the right one, so basically reorganizes that. One of the three founders is today, of the original co-founders, is today with me. The other two have left since, and then calls in, let's say, one of his co-investors in other businesses to effectively lead the company, CEO, but part-time, because this person was very, very busy and doing many jobs, so he was like a part-time CEO. And he's now my CPO, so his name is Richard Jones. And Richard, during these 2 years of being CEO, effectively creates the product that you see today, the app, and which was revolutionary in the days. You have to remember, this was pre all the fintechs. The only example of like kind of modern fintech that could be used as an inspiration was a company called Simple in the US back in 2013 approximately, and then also tries various ways of distributing the product and basically stumbles upon Facebook. And once these two things were here, so the product and at least a channel, the board started a search, and that's where I came. That's in June 2015. I came in when the company had like 30,000 clients and 2 years and a half of trading.
And a little bit going back, I mean, it is a financial product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I guess that it falls also under certain regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And how did they tackle that one? Because, I mean, children, if I am correct, it addresses to children beneath a certain age.
Yeah, from 6 to 18.
Yeah, exactly, 6 to 18. And normally they are not empowered to do operations on a bank account. Let's call it like that. And how did they not circumvent them, but convince the financial institutions to go with it? Or did they become themselves a financial institution?
No. So since the beginning, we are running Gohenry in the UK, and the US has a similar concept under something called e-money. So basically, it's a prepaid card, first of all. So it's not a credit card, right? It's a prepaid card. The child cannot spend more than whatever is on the card. And it's a debit card, so it's immediate. When the founders looked at the space, there was actually something called Visa Bucks back in the days, which was kind of addressing the same target. So, more like teenagers, right? Not really the youngest, but did not have all the, let's say, the bells and whistles coming with the digital, with an app, right? It was just the naked card. So the idea of giving a card to a child, in this case, a teenager, was already in the market, right? And in a few markets. So the innovation, if you want, was to lower the bar to the age of 8. 6 came later, so we started with 8, and make it clear that the customer, the contractual customer, the entity, is the parent, not the child. And it's still the case today. So the child, if you want, is the user of the card, but the responsibility is with the parents. The third thing that we've done, which was something that already existed in the market, is the card cannot be used at some, let's say, I would say, adult type of shops or merchants, right? So it is blocked. The pan of the card doesn't work. But what was, I think, let's say, easy to sell, if you want, is this idea that it is a product absolutely crafted for families, for children. The app is controlling the card. So, for instance, the parent can set how much the child can spend in a week, right? And if they want to spend more than what is allowed, the transaction is declined and they get a message. The parent also sets where how the card can be used. Can it be used to withdraw money at the ATM or not? Can it be used to buy stuff online or not, right? So there are controls which make like the risk of these things going completely wild, I would say, limited. And so on this basis, the company started in the UK, and then the same has been applied to the US.
And on the other hand, I mean, that is a little bit the regulatory part. So,
yeah.
But how did you convince parents to enable their kids to manage, between quotation marks, money on themselves? I mean,
well, in the same, it's very simple. When, especially when we talk about the very early days, right? Like in the first, let's say 2, 3, 5 years of the business, the customers that you get are the early adopters, right? These people are already giving money to their children in the form of cash. Okay, they give them a weekly allowance, or they pay them for a chore they do at home, or even the child receives money directly from the grandparents for the birthday, whatever. So it's not like money was absent from the child's life, and this is the first time they experience money. No. Typically, it's a continuation of an experience that had already started. But what the card does, which cash cannot do, is each time the card is used, the parent gets a notification. So much was spent at this place, and this is how much has been left. With cash, you can do nothing of that, none of that, right? There is no traceability. So that's the immediate benefit that parents see. Parents who have been giving weekly allowances to their children say, yeah, of course. How do I get that? I mean, the conversation is very quick. It's not like you have to explain quickly, right? Today, where we are becoming more of a mass market product, we are reaching out to people who are actually, would be their first interaction with money when it comes to money and children. There is more explanation, of course. You have to explain, okay, but why do you start so early with kids? And then what we do is basically we use our community. Our community is already like completely bought into the product, super huge fans of the product. So they explain in their words why they do it, and in particular, what's the benefit, and why actually, as a parent, you have to do it if you want to prepare your children basically to master a life skill. It's a bit like riding a bike, right? When you are 6, it's very easy to you never forget how to ride the bike. Even when you are 70, you come back for the first time, back on the seat, you will know how to pedal. It's the same here, right? So this is one of these life skills that the earliest you start, the better it is, because then you will build on. It's a bit like mathematics. You are building a pyramid of skills, right? It is getting more and more complex, but you cannot get to the most complex unless you have first mastered the basis.
On the other hand, I mean, you explained a little bit how you adapted your addressing of the market, of the potential market. And you also touch up on educating. Do you also go out, or do you have ambassadors who go out and eventually to teach, on the one hand, the parents, but also the children on financial matters that they eventually get a grasp? Or is that something which your community is doing per se?
Not exactly as you said. So we don't do that in the physical world, right? But we do it in, and what I would say now is we will do much better. At the moment, what we do is, okay, we do it in the digital world. So if you go in the app today, you could see as a new parent who doesn't know, let's say, one of the first questions that you get from parents when they start with Gohenry is, how much should I pay to my child? And what we do is you have a little basically screen that says, okay, for a 7-year-old, it's typically so much in the UK or in the US, right? And for a 15, so much, and for a 17, so much. So basically, and these are averages from the population of customers we have. Same question for if some parents want to pay their children for chores, tasks they do, typically in the household. And again, the same question: how much should I pay for my child to wash my car? Right, as an example, right? Well, here is the rate if you want today in the UK or the last 6 months in the UK. So basically, this is the way the community gets to. Let's say we use the community to feed back to the new users, but we are not doing it in a way that involves, let's say, physically a person in that conversation, simply because what we want is a slick experience. So, and we have not yet. We are just finishing cracking that part before we go to the next one, which is actually how do we use our community to empower our brand so that we get, like what you say, ambassadors, and they start, let's say, playing an active role in, for instance, onboarding parents and all that stuff. But this is still something that we have to crack. We want to get there.
Thank you. And on the other hand, I mean, okay, it remembers me a little bit with the mobile industry when you had prepaid SMS credits on the cards, and then if the children, if the kids, they were overrunning it, then you get an SMS and you could deblock it and so on. That's one thing. But and also you mentioned that some financial institutions already were thinking about it or offering something similar when you were launching. But how do the financial institutions, I mean the retail banks, I'm talking about retail banks, how do they see Gohenry, as a partner or as a peer?
Well, today it's neither, in the sense that in the UK at least and in the US, none of the major retail banks is offering anything similar to what we offer. Today in the UK, if you are the parent of a child who is below the age of 11, the only thing that you can open is a savings account. Right? In the US, the same is true for children below the age of 13. So I would say in the 8 years that we've been running this business, growing it, not much has changed on the retail bank side. Now, will things change? Yes, I'm pretty sure that in the next 8 years, we will finish the next 8 years with some players being in this market. The reason why they have not been in this market is manifold. I would summarize that as they have really other bigger issues to deal with than that. I mean, I'm talking about now, let's say, the burden of regulation, the tech legacy, the burden of the tech legacy that they have to unravel and change. So like a lot of, if you look at really the bank's balance sheet and P&L, they actually have not much left to really innovate, right? So that's one thing. The second is also that there is probably a bit of a negative predisposition to the space, like looking at it. Okay, children, money, it's complicated for banks. You know, there is also like probably they are thinking reputational damage if something goes wrong. Okay, so I mean, for all these reasons, they have not been moving in this space. But I think that they will be moving because I mean, just look at what happened to Robinhood in the US recently. So the new generation is completely online, and the new generation is smart. So you cannot ignore that trend if you are a bank and you are thinking of your customers for the next 20, 30 years, right? You have to be in this space as soon as it's possible. So I think they will come to this market, and then they will come to this market two ways. Either they will develop a solution themselves, or they will partner with people like us.
Thank you. And on the other hand, I mean, again, with the analogy, I mean, on the devices, I guess you have a debit card, which in the beginning was physical, and now you probably also move it on the smart devices of the kids for an app, like, I don't know, with all the other wallets they have there and so on. How do you see the mobile operators? Because they're also getting in that game. I mean, becoming more like transactional and also offering transactional services like financial services. If you look at the big household names, how they moved first with mobile money and then payment per SMS and so all that stuff. And especially in the developing countries, they moved quite fast there. And are they not holding on one hand part of the customer relationship you would like to have?
No, I would say you shouldn't. I mean, no company, to be honest, including us, should think of their customers as these are my customers, right? This is like a stretch because that's not the way the customer thinks, right? So the customer, when you think of a mobile operator, they think of, okay, mobile operator, to call, to make Zoom calls, etc., right? Now, again, mobile operators is a space a bit like banks, actually, where you have, it's a typically in each market, you have a sort of an oligopolistic situation. So you have like 3-4 players who are like, have carved out the market, are not growing anymore, and basically customers go from one to the next, like there's a huge churn, and the only customers you can get are the newcomers, those who basically are young, right? And so for them, what is important is a service differentiation. How do I make my offer for a few months different from all my competitors so that I can basically be more relevant for the next generation, right? Well, this is where we can come in the sense that, yeah, it is I don't see, I could be wrong, but I could be in particular wrong in Asia, but in Europe, I don't see, including the UK, I don't see at the moment mobile operators going the way of the Asian super apps or like this type of, let's say, trend. So I would think that for them it will probably, again, decision: do we build it or do we partner? And some of them will build, some of them will partner, but I don't think that the majority will build something. I would be surprised. But we would be like one of these, a bit like Spotify was a differentiator to the telco operators in Sweden when they launched, and one of them partnered and got a boon, and then everyone else got around, etc. So it's the same story, right? So it's a service that could be a differentiating value-added service for a couple of years and could justify an investment from their side.
And I just look a little bit at the questions I get and also
Sure.
in the chat. Here's one is, in the beginning, I mean, what was the hardest part? Was it to develop the app? Do you see Gohenry more like let's say a developer, a software developer, an app developer, or more like a financial service provider? And how has it changed from the early days to, let's say, today, more or less?
I think the hardest part was distribution and figuring out a distribution model that made sense, financially speaking, to the company. So I forgot to say that the service I described is a paid-for service. It's not free, right? So customers are charged in the UK £2.99 per child, per active child account, and in the US $3.99. This is paid by the parents, not by the children. So when you have a model, and that, sorry, and I'm asking on this, what we call this the membership fee. This amount was different and was lower actually in the UK when I joined the company. So the most difficult, I think, was to crack this formula. How do you acquire customers when you basically are making these thin margins in terms of like dollar amount per head? And that required a lot of work. And I think that also probably explains why there are so few players in this space, because this is a difficult formula to crack. Then something else, which is I wouldn't qualify that as the most difficult, but the most innovative part was actually creating the app, because that was again before the fintech apps that we have seen since then, and marrying that with a subscription model. It was the first time that a card, in general, not just for kids, that a card was not, a prepaid card was not charged by usage, but was charged monthly. It was, like the founders put like Netflix, Spotify concept in the card, right? And that was a bit of a jump into the unknown. Well, it worked out, and that was an interesting innovation. Mm-hmm.
Another one is, as you were already addressing the market, is how did the market develop geographically, and where are you today, geographically speaking, and what are the plans for other expansion?
We are in two markets, the UK and the US. US is nationwide, and we are now really busy with growing the US. So before we finish, let's say, before we are confident that the US is on a very good path, I would not like entertain going into, let's say, Europe, because that's the biggest market on the planet and the most difficult to crack, actually. So we have a lot of work in the US. In the UK, we are by a long margin the leader in this market, which we have created. In the US, there is competition. You would expect that from the US. So these are the two markets we are in at the moment.
Do you foresee to develop further into Europe, mainland Europe?
Yeah, but not this year. Maybe next year. Let's see. The European market is also, at least in this space, compared to the UK and the US, a little bit behind. So if you look at the French market, there are 3 players in this market who are like doing something similar to what we do, but they are not taking off. Like after they have passed the first, let's say, thousands of early adopters, they seem to be a bit like stuck there. So we have to see really how they develop, because that could be a signal for us to do something in France.
And on the other hand, coming a little bit back, I mean, you generally to have to make profits, you need a product or a service which you're going to sell, but you also need resources, you need people, you need the team. How did you go about that? I mean, as I understood in the beginning, it was the founders and then the families. How did you structure the team? Because if I remember well, you are based here in Luxembourg, physically for the time being.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also you transited to the UK. But how has the team developed? I mean, from the founder's idea to all the different funding sources and so on. Has it developed more like a technical company or more like a sales company? How would you see it?
Yeah, so today, I mean, since actually the beginning, we've had an approach of all in-house, if you want. Before I answer your question, I have to develop a little bit how Gohenry sits in the stack, because that's important. So if you want, we are like a value-added layer of value-added services sitting on top of big players who have machines to transact. Today, our big players are FIS. It's the largest US, actually worldwide, card processor. We use Adian to get parents' money into our bank accounts, into our accounts, etc. So we are like a value-added service, and all the intelligence about how much a kid can spend, monitoring all that stuff, the notification, this is all in-house. So since the beginning, we have the product, the engineering team is in-house, customer service is in-house, of course, sales and marketing is in-house. And what we've done is basically grow that team. Of course, there were people come and go, but like, let's say the functions have not changed much. I forgot to say, we are only doing direct to consumer. We are not doing B2B. So it's a direct to consumer team. But what we have done is, and that has, I think it was already starting before COVID, but it has quite changed with COVID, or it was like confirmed with COVID, is we had started probably in 2019, I think, offshoring some functions, in particular dev functions, development teams. We went to Romania. We have like a big team there. But we've always had, and we will continue having, like the core is in the UK. So the UK core, product, marketing, tech, etc., is servicing these two markets. And for instance, the US, we are now building a team on the East Coast to complement the UK team. But it is mostly an in-house product.
Thank you very much. I'm looking at the time. We are just in time, checking the last questions if there are some. No. Then just to finish, I mean, how do you foresee the future development of Gohenry? If you had a crystal ball, And if you had the magic wand, what would you like to foresee?
What I would like, so our mission is to make every child be good with money. So if I had a wand, I would want this to be true. So to be done, so that every child on the planet has gone through the education, the real life. It's not like it's not a classroom. It's a really you learn by doing. This learning by doing education to money. Why? Because I think it goes back actually to the founder's idea, not the ideas, but the context in which Gohenry was created is on the back of the financial crisis of 2008 and 9. And if you look at the root causes of the financial crisis, one of them is financial ineducation of the people who took on that they could not afford, right? And when you start to, when you think of this, how come this happened? Well, because basically they were not trained. There is no magic. It's a matter of doing it. When you do stuff, you learn. Everyone has the same brains, right? We all learn these things. The thing is that they didn't have the opportunity to learn. And when we speak today to parents, especially to parents in the US, actually, some of them tell us very clearly that they want their customers to have a solution like Gohenry, so that their kids do not go through the same binge hell of credit card binge that they had when they were 18 or 20, and which in the US is terrible. When you fall into this trap, there is no way out. Every month is worse than the previous month because the system is built to just make you poorer, right? The extracting fees is just, this has been optimized to the nth level of perfection. And so basically, yeah, when you don't have the reflexes, effectively it's this, we are building reflexes, right? And when you are not prompted to actually not buy something, right? Don't buy, keep the money, save. This basic, like primal almost like reactions, they have to be in your body so that you don't fall into this trap. So all this long diatribe to say, if we can make every child be good with money, we will create for ourselves, for our children and grandchildren, less problems because the economic distress that has happened to us in 2008 is, I would say, probably 90% of it our own fault, right? So take the lesson and work on that mission.
Thank you very much, Alex, for sharing with us these positive thoughts and also for having been a fireside chat on this SGVirtual. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you for the invitation. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good day.